YouTube gang, what's up, fellas? All right, I know I haven't dropped a video in a little while. I've been extremely busy lately, working multiple jobs. Been coaching the early morning CrossFit classes at the gym, and then working 2 other jobs. I'm teaching, I'm waiting tables. So also still in the process of finishing up multiple original albums. So I've been in the studio anytime I have a second away from work. I'm in the studio working on music and getting my logo and the graphic design all worked out and everything mixed and mastered and ready to release. So I've got an album that's going to be out on all the platforms next Friday, FYI. So looking forward to sharing that with you guys. So before I ramble on too much, I got a topic I wanted to talk about. So this is a concept that's been very useful to me for quite some time. And I've had a lot of ups and downs in my life. So I've had things where I've been in very dark places, in very bad situations. I've been homeless multiple times. I've been institutionalized. I've been addicted to various substances, relationships, corn, all this stuff. You know, I've been really prone to a lot of these problems. Had a lot of health problems when I was younger, in and out of doctors' offices a lot, with a lot of chronic health stuff. So as I sit here today at age 37, I have no chronic health problems. I have none of the issues that I've been dealing with my entire life up to this point do I still deal with. The only issue I still really deal with, I would call the human condition, which is just the issue of being a human in this world where everything is constantly in flux and changing, and where there are forces of wickedness that are in high places. We do have a system, that is generally governed by dishonest, greedy, wicked people. And a lot of this stuff's very real. And we're faced with that, being in this world, we're forced to sort of play the game a little bit if we want to have a zip code, if we want to have a job, if we want to be able to shop, have a phone, all these things. Some people completely leave and they go live in the woods and they pull it off. But a lot of us, I think that's not really the calling. The calling is to leave the matrix on a mental, spiritual level, but to remain here physically so that our energy and our vibration is available to other people. And our very presence as liberated sovereign minds and people who are healthy and have healed ourselves and escaped a lot of the conditioning, which tells us that we always have to outsource our healing or our abilities to deal with problems to some other person, to some expert, this, that, and the other, instead of going to God with it. Yeah, there are situations where, you do need to go see a doctor, or maybe you do need to go see a lawyer, or you do need to see some sort of expert. But if that's the situation, having a relationship with God will let you know that that's what you need to do, right? So God comes first. So the concept I wanted to talk about with you guys is pain being a teacher. All right. I know this is really a semen retention channel. This isn't exactly a semen retention subject, although it is indirectly related to that, because I was brought to semen retention by pain. Pain is what pushed me in this direction. And the remembrance of that pain, of the way that I used to live my life compared to how things are going now, the lack of pain I feel now compared to what I used to feel, right? That's part of what keeps me going with retention. So it is related in that way. But it's also a phenomena that applies in all areas of life. So I just wanted to point out some things I've noticed about the world we live in. So a lot of people have a very unhealthy or very illogical or irrational relationship with pain. Pain is generally regarded as a bad thing, all right? And it's, I guess, bad in the sense that it's not ideal. We don't seek out pain. It's not like we were born wanting to feel pain. But pain tells you something. Pain teaches you something. If I put my hand on a hot stove, it hurts. That's the stove and the nerve endings and my brain and all of these things working in harmony with each other saying, hey, take your hand off the stove if you want to be able to use your hand later on. So that pain is a good thing. It's teaching you something. That's the most obvious example. But people don't necessarily apply that same logic to, let's say, if they're getting headaches all the time, or their back hurts, or they're constantly having knee pain or shoulder pain, or they're in emotional pain. They're depressed, they're anxious, they struggle in relationships. You know, the pain that comes from an inability to have a harmonious relationship. That's been the greatest source of pain in my life. I've had a lot of injuries. I've broken bones, I've torn ligaments, I've had surgeries. But the worst pain I've ever felt has really been the result of things I've gone through in relationships, emotional pain. And I've gone to great lengths to numb that emotional pain, to escape it with various different means, everything from actual painkillers to, you know, hard drugs and alcohol, to escapism with video games and screens and workaholism. You know, there's a point where I was bartending in an addictive way. It was that being so busy bartending that I didn't have time to think about my problems, but as soon as I went home and things were quiet, I was an absolute emotional wreck. And that's when I needed substances to kind of like deal with it. So I was in a lot of pain a lot of my life, and always, looking back on it, pain was always there telling me something. The same way it does on the stove. It tells me that there's something I'm doing that I need to change. And that pain is my own responsibility. So we're not necessarily taught this in our culture, in our society. Growing up, we're not taught these lessons about pain necessarily. We more and more so all the time, we live in a culture where it's like everybody gets a gold star, everybody gets an award, everybody gets a pat on the back. Good job, good job. A lot of people are afraid to offend other people. They'll fall in line and they'll engage in illogical behaviors and not think for themselves because they fear the pain of being ostracized from the group. They fear the pain of being seen as separate. They fear being alone, right? And why do a lot of people get into relationships that they don't belong in? Because they're afraid of the pain of being alone, right? But if being alone is painful to you, that's telling you something. There's a lesson in that. That means that you have some unresolved emotional and spiritual and psychological issue going on, because being alone shouldn't be painful for anybody. You should be able to sit in solitude and feel perfectly at peace with that. To me, the pain of being alone is really a spiritual problem, because when you develop a relationship with God and a loving relationship with yourself, you never really feel alone. You see, I'm alone a lot of the time. I never really feel alone though. And that carries into my social life. Because I'm not somebody that needs I don't need anything from anybody. I'm self-sufficient and I get everything I need from God. So when I am around other people, I'm actually able to contribute something. I don't need to always pull energy from other people. And a lot of people are out there just pulling energy from each other. A lot of people are lacking because of their inability to just be alone, because they find that painful, right? And so a lot of people too, they're putting a lot of toxins in their body on a regular basis. They're putting toxic food, energy drinks, alcohol, drugs, fast food, whatever. They're living a life that's too sedentary. They're not moving enough, or maybe they're addicted to working out and they're moving too much, or they're addicted to their job and they're working too much. They're not resting enough, or they're lazy and they're resting too much and they're not working. You know, any of these things can lead to physical symptoms in the body, like constipation. You know, living a life that is not in harmony with your soul's purpose creates stress, which can create constipation, which can create back pain. So a lot of people might go to a doctor, oh, my back hurts. They might send them to a chiropractor or say, here's some Advil, take some ibuprofen, take some Tylenol. Here's a drug that's going to disrupt your gut biome and mess your kidneys and liver up to treat the symptom of pain that's the result of something, that's the result of something, that's the result of something. See, people don't get to the root of the problem a lot of times. The root of the problem a lot of times is stress and a lack of spiritual connection. And that spiritual connection, oddly enough, is going to reduce stress. Because when you have a relationship with God, like a real personal relationship with God, where it's not like, oh, I think there's a God, I believe there's a God, it makes sense that there's a God. It's like, no, there is, and I have a personal relationship with God, and you trust that God, and you act in accordance with that, you have less stress in your life, because you don't need to worry about anything. You just need to do what needs done, right? And you're under a higher guidance system. You're not necessarily going off of your egoic desires, your physical desires, your sexual desires, or the conditioning that society has given to you. That's not your operating system. Your operating system is much higher than that. So to tap into that operating system, it helps not to be in pain all the time. But the pain, if it's there because it needs your attention. It's telling you something. So I'll give you guys one more example before this video goes on too long. Is a lot of my life I've dealt with insomnia. That's been a huge issue for me, and that's caused a lot of pain. I actually, at one point in my life, totally sober, went 9 days without sleeping. It was to the point where I couldn't function at work anymore. I was going absolutely crazy. And this was actually a big breakthrough for me. The pain of that situation put me in therapy. I started going to therapy about it. And of course I could take drugs over it, but at that point in my life I was committed to my sobriety and I wasn't going to take drugs about it. Or I at least wanted that to be the last resort. So I found a guy that taught breath work. And I got really involved in breath work and I started making that a practice. And sure enough, that started helping. That started helping my problem. More than anything though, what's helped my insomnia and that pain is living a life that's in accordance with my true nature and with God's will for me. And in order to figure out what that is, I've had to eliminate a lot of the noise, a lot of the distractions, which for me personally, the biggest distraction was always women and relationships. So that's where retention and celibacy are crucial. They're critical to my development and my success in life. Because I know myself, by this point in life, I know myself well enough, and I've learned enough through all of the pain that I've felt from giving too much energy to that side of life, that when I retain and I abstain and I maintain and I keep my composure and I self-regulate and I start to cultivate self-mastery, right? A lot of this pain and this distraction and this noise leaves. And what's left is clarity. And the clarity helps me see very clearly what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I sleep better at night. I wake up more rested. I'm more efficient at doing that thing the next day. And each day I try to just do better than I did the previous day. And that makes me feel good and accomplished, and that gives me esteem. And this way of life is going to make you a person that people want to be around, that people want to exchange energy with. You become a very valuable member of society because your energy says you are grounded and you're present and you're aware and you're capable and you're sharp and you're in alignment, you're in harmony. You're like a guitar that's perfectly in tune. Whereas a lot of people, it's like the strings are out of tune. You hit the chord and it's like, please stop. A lot of people's energy are like that because they're out of accordance, right? And they're probably in pain. And the pain is probably the result of something that they're doing that they could change. But doctors don't necessarily have time to get to the root of your problem. Even psychiatrists that will sit and talk to you for an hour will still give you a pill to deal with your problem instead of getting really down to the root of it. So, enough out of me. Thought I'd drop a video because it's been a while. I love you guys. Hope everybody's doing well. Keep going. Peace.